Everyone I think knows about rheumatology and the burden of arthritis. This is a picture which is showing this lady holding the hand showing deformities. Today I'll deal about rheumatoid arthritis, current perspective and innovations, as lot of innovative work is going on in rheumatology at present. So I'll start with this. This is one of my patients who has twice put a euthanasia petition. She is a gold medalist from BITS Pilani. She was a very educated lady and she had rheumatoid. But it was never treated properly. Even once she was bedridden and her joints were operated, but still she didn't get much treatment for rheumatoid. So last year we just got her to Fortis and we started her treatment. When I saw her first, she was bedridden and her HP was around 6 and she was very stiff. But over the period of 1 year, she has improved, and the improvement I will show you at the end of my slides. So we'll start with rheumatoid arthritis. As you all know, it is a systemic disease and causes destructive arthropathies. Peak incidence is around 4 to 6 decades, but nowadays we are seeing early onset rheumatoid also. It is a female predominant disease, smoking is a risk factor, and genetics play an important role. This is from NHS side, that smoking burns the joints. If someone is smoking in your family, there are chances that others also get rheumatoid. The reason for that is this. Because smoking activates anti-CCP. Anti-CCP causes rheumatoid further. Stress has been related to arthritis quite a long time now. There is a recent study which shows if someone has a change of a place or has some issues at workplace, their chances of getting arthritis are more. Just about the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, a brief. We see synovitis in hands, swelling of joints. This is showing the knee joints with the arthritis. This is a picture of RA knee. Complications if arthritis not treated properly can lead to deformities. And once the deformities develop, it cannot be corrected by medical means. So these are few deformities we have here. We see quite frequently rheumatoid nodules. They can be single, they can be multiple, they are on the extensor surfaces, and we see on the Achilles tendon also. Skin complications are very frequently seen. Skin can be dry, nails can be brittle. This is the complication which is very dreaded, and if systemic involvement is there, then it is not good. Vasculitis either can be only the skin or a systemic involvement. Sjogren's syndrome is very common. Sometimes we have patients who come to us with Sjogren's syndrome and they are later on diagnosed as rheumatoid. Patients can present with anemia, leukopenias, ITP, drug-induced neutropenia, thrombocytopenias, and even malignancies. Seronegative diseases are seen as malignancies also sometimes. We have patients with entrapment of nerves like carpal tunnel syndrome. Eye complications are very common like scleritis, keratoconjunctivitis sicca, episcleritis, iridocyclitis. Atlantoaxial instability, if a patient with rheumatoid is complaining of neck pain and it is missed, it can be life-threatening. So how to evaluate a patient with rheumatoid? First and foremost is the clinical part. Then we look at the acute phase reactants, some serological tests like RF and anti-CCP, and radiology, X-ray, ultrasounds and MRIs. So what we see in rheumatoid is this. This is just a tip of the iceberg. And this is what we don't see. So we should be very proactive in treating rheumatoid. So coming to the classification criteria given by ACR ULAR in 2010, early morning stiffness is vital of around 1 hour, which takes around 1 hour for improvement. and 3 or more joint areas should be involved. The 3 or more joint areas are these: large joints, metacarpophalangeal, interphalangeal joints and metatarsal joints. So we should have at least one joint, and synovitis should not be explained by any other cause. So this was the criteria with which we diagnosed it. It had 4 components, and if we have more than 6 the points with this, it is definite RA. And if the points are less than 6, then we have to look at the patient profile and diagnose the case. This is a bit complicated slide. I'll skip it. So how do you monitor severity of the disease? We have DAS28, CDAI, SDAI and STR. So if the for remission we need a CDAI of less than equal to 2.8, SDAI of less than equal to 3.3 and DAS28 of less than 2.6. So coming to the investigation part, first of all the serological test, the rheumatoid factor, which is ordered quite frequently. The titer is important. It is not at all sensitive in RA patients. It can be seen in other patients also. And if present, it suggests a more severe disease and more extra-articular manifestations. Anti-CCP is another molecule. It is very specific. Presence shows a high, very severe and destructive course. Association can have a cardiovascular mortality also. In undifferentiated disease, it is very vital, and even if a patient is having arthralgias and is having anti-CCP positive, his chances of getting arthritis are high. Coming to radiology. Radiology is showing this, the left hand side X-ray is showing a normal X-ray and right side is showing the erosion. It's in severe disease. This is showing the same findings in the field. This is what we see early. It is periarticular osteoporosis. If we don't treat it properly, then after 6 months we reach here. This is the radiograph showing mutilation. Ultrasound has come as a novel investigation in the early diagnosis of rheumatoid. If we have an ultrasound, MSK ultrasound probe, we can pick up inflammation very early. So approach is to treat early, to treat appropriately, and to treatment by a specialist. So when we have an early disease, we have a window of opportunity. It's around 12 weeks. If first 12 weeks patient is treated, then the results are good and there are less chances of having a deformity later on. Good treatment in early rheumatoid is a gold standard. So it's like fire in the joints. If there is fire in your kitchen, you won't allow it to burn your whole house. So how to treat? We have disease modifying drugs. These drugs are pretty old now. So we have methotrexate, sulfasalazine, hydroxychloroquine and leflunomide, and cyclosporin and azathioprine can be used. We can use it as a combination, as a triple therapy, double therapy or a monotherapy. Methotrexate is a sheet anchor. It is used as a weekly dose. Onset is slow. Common side effects needs to be looked upon, like elevation of liver enzymes and GI side effects. It is contraindicated in liver disease and pregnancies. The lab monitoring is needed initially monthly, then we can increase it later. Hydroxychloroquine was never thought to work in arthritis, but it is a very good drug. It can be used in combination or in mild RAs. It enhances the effect of methotrexate if it is combined. It is also slow acting. Photosensitivity is the issue, and ophthalmic screen should be done at least once a year. Sulfasalazine is also a good drug. It can be used even in pregnant females if they are having arthritis. Liver side effects are quite common but early, and we should increase the dose slowly. I get a lot of patients young females on leflunomide. Because leflunomide, if it is given, it takes a long time to go out of the body. So it should not be started in young females of childbearing age. Its side effect profile is similar to methotrexate, slow in action, and liver enzyme should be followed. But after some time, if it is tolerated, then it's not an issue. Intra-articular injections are quite common. So next we'll come to biologics. This has revolutionized treatment in rheumatology. So just I'll go through the pathway once. We have a T cell which releases anti-TNFs and macrophages. It activates the macrophages which further lead to IL-6, TNF and IL-1. So we have biologics which target each one of them. So first is anti-TNFs like etanercept, infliximab, adalimumab, IL-6 tocilizumab. The target as CD20 as rituximab, abatacept and tofacitinib. So how do anti-TNFs act? TNF, when it attaches to the receptor, it gives a signal. And if we prevent it from attaching to the receptor, the signal does not go and it does not go further. So what do anti-TNF like infliximab and adalimumab they do? They attach to the receptor. And there is another soluble TNFs. They balance the TNFs. So we have engineered soluble anti-TNF which is known as etanercept. It also acts in the similar way. Rituximab was initially being used in hematological malignancies, but now it is being used in RA quite frequently. So how it acts is B cells activates the plasma cells and it leads to further formation of antibodies and rheumatoid factor. So what does anti-CD20 does? It attaches to the CD20 and it blocks the B cell. Once the B cell is blocked, the pathways are blocked. Abatacept acts on the T cell co-stimulator blockade pathway. It blocks the pathway and it does not allow for T cell to get activated. So when it is blocked here, the T cell is non-activated. So just in brief, like how to treat, these are the guidelines. So first we should go with monotherapy with methotrexate based. If there are no side contraindications, then leflunomide. If there are any contraindications for methotrexate, then leflunomide or sulfasalazine should be tried. If the DMARDs fail, then we go to the biologics. First we try anti-TNFs or rituximab. Then if these biologics fail, then we go to the phase 3 and we can use tofacitinib also. This is the ACI guidelines which has come around 1 month, around 20 days back, and it is also similar to what I have told earlier. So the another innovative option which has come in rheumatoid arthritis, as Dr. Sodhi has told, is curcumin. Curcumin has anti-inflammatory, antioxidant and anti-proliferative properties. It acts on NF-κB inhibitor, as Sir has told earlier, so I won't go through the mechanism. So its role in RA there have been few studies, but I think few more data is needed to substantiating its use in RA. It's in comparison to diclofenac, it was found safe and better, as it led to 52% reduction of CRP as compared to diclofenac, which was less. This was the data which showed its effectiveness. It was found people tolerated it very well. They had very less GI side effects and they showed improvement in joint swellings and morning stiffness. So if we use curcumin along with celecoxib, it decreases the need for celecoxib. If it is used with prednisolone, it decreases the dose of prednisolone and joint swellings also. And with methotrexate, it has a synergistic action. And it has been seen to reduce hepatotoxicity and hematological toxicities of methotrexate also. So coming to the safety, US FDA has put it as a very safe drug. Unlike the NSAIDs, which have effects on kidney, GI and cardiovascular, it is till now it has been proved to be safe. Occasionally people have nausea or diarrhea with it. So what is the difference between conventional curcumin and the product which is coming up? Conventional curcumin, we have to give a very high dose and it goes undetectable in plasma at lower doses. It shows poor GI tolerability and the doses need to be taken are up to 12 grams. So this is the bioenhanced curcumin with SWETS technology. So the particle size is very small and it can cross the blood-brain and tissue barrier. Summarizing about curcumin, it inhibits the NF-κB pathway, decreases TNFs, IL-6 and IL-1. Monotherapy is found to be effective, but it has been more proven as a synergistic drug. Efficacy is at par with NSAIDs, helps in dose reduction of NSAIDs and even methotrexate. So it can either be used as a monotherapy in milder cases, but more frequently it might work in combination. So I'll just run the video of that lady, just a clip, how she has improved from the time I had seen her. And we had treated her only with DMARDs and short course steroids, and now she can walk with support. Earlier she was bedridden. She made it people to day-to-day activities. Around 2 weeks back, with this deformity in hand, she has made a beautiful painting, and it gives a lot of pleasure